Facts First presents. Husband of 26 years dies from this common insect bite. Chrissy was married to her husband for 26 years. They shared a son together who was in junior high. Her husband was a bit overweight for a while, and he was working hard to lose that weight through diet and exercise. He was typically healthy. The whole time they were married, she only remembered him being sick once. That's why she became very worried when he did get sick. She says at first he was running a low-grade fever. She thought maybe he had a touch of the flu. But over the next few days, his fever got worse and he was feeling too weak to stand up. Her husband developed a high fever after that. It was so bad his clothes would be drenched with sweat. Chrissy says that she had to keep changing his pajamas and bedding because he was sweating so badly. Well, finally, she took him to urgent care, and there he was diagnosed with a severe kidney infection and he was given antibiotics. While this did break his fever and the sweats, her husband still didn't feel right. He told Chrissy that just getting up and walking to the bathroom took every bit of energy he had. Chrissy knew this was not normal. Chrissy's husband felt weaker and weaker by the day. She began to suspect that the hospital had misdiagnosed her husband's condition, so she took him to the hospital, and there the doctors ran tests for scarlet fever, strep, meningitis, and they all came back negative. What the doctors did know was that his liver and kidneys were still shutting down. The hospital didn't have the resources to care for her husband, and they transferred him to a medical center that specialized in liver malfunction. Finally, Chrissy felt she was getting some relief and some help. She was sure this time her husband would get the care he needed, and she began to feel a glimmer of hope. When her husband arrived at the medical center, they put him immediately on dialysis. The doctors woke him periodically to make sure his brain was functioning properly, and after 2 days in the hospital, Chrissy's husband still wasn't doing any better. When he started showing signs of respiratory distress, the doctors told Chrissy that his prognosis did not look good. The harder it became for him to breathe, the worse Chrissy worried, and soon he was transferred to the ICU and was put on a ventilator to help him breathe. The doctors at the medical center had been running tests ever since Chrissy's husband arrived, and finally they had an accurate diagnosis. He was suffering from a tick-borne illness that attacks red blood cells. Because her husband had his spleen removed, the infection was especially severe. While Chrissy was relieved, the doctors finally had a diagnosis and they began him on medication, so Chrissy was sure that her husband would soon be home. The next morning, around 4:30 a.m., Chrissy got a phone call from the hospital. They told her that she'd better get there quickly, and when she arrived, the doctors told her that her husband's blood pressure was dropping. His heart was giving out. Chrissy panicked. She couldn't handle the thought of losing her husband. Within 2 hours of her arrival to the hospital, though, her husband passed away. She couldn't believe it. Her husband of 23 years was gone. She was furious because this tragedy should have been avoided. Chrissy doesn't want her husband's death to be in vain, so she's trying to raise awareness of tick-borne illnesses. Unfortunately, these illnesses are very hard to diagnose because the symptoms often mimic the symptoms of other diseases. She wants people to understand that if you've had a splenectomy or if your immune system is compromised, you are at even more considerable risk of death. Since her husband's passing, Chrissy says that her family is broken, incomplete. She says her husband won't be around now to teach their son to drive. He won't be there to teach their son about girls or to help choose a college. It breaks her heart that he will miss out on all these things because of a tiny tick bite. Chrissy's trying to raise awareness for tick prevention. She says even if you don't have a compromised immune system, you can still get very sick from a tick bite. Taking the necessary precautions can save your life. Sadly, she didn't know until it was too late to save her husband. And now her family will never be the same. Help spread the word about the dangers of tick bites by clicking that like button and share this video on your own social media or text a link to this video to your friends and family. And subscribe for more.